Guys, if you have not been keeping up with every single blog post, TWAB, developer insight, Twitter drop from game directors, that's alright. Today, guys, we're going to be giving you the 10 biggest changes coming this week in Season 22. Think of this as the TLDR, just in case you want to know the highlights. With that being said, we will be live on the 22nd, watching the final shape reveal, and also going over patch notes as soon as they roll out. It's going to be a hell of a list. But starting with big change number 1, exotic mission Rotator. Fellas, sunsetting has been a sore spot for years, and some of the best content Bungie has taken out of the game has been exotic missions. Now, they announced this before the launch of Lightfall, but it's not until this season that we're actually going to finally get this exotic mission Rotator. Now, this essentially will reintroduce 3 exotic missions to the game with both normal and legendary difficulties, rotating on a weekly basis. Now, for starters, these are the Presage from Season the Chosen, which is an Osiris-led excursion of the Egregore-infested Glycon ship that rewarded the Dead Man's Tale Scout Rifle. We also have the Vox Obscura from Season the Risen, which is a time trial mission in the D1 sands of Mars that gave us the Dead Messenger grenade launcher. And then finally, we have Operation Seraph Shield, a fantastic mission from the final season leading up to Lightfall, which drops the exotic pulse rifle / sniper hybrid Revision 0. Now, this Rotator is a great addition for 2 major reasons. First, these missions are some of the best Bungie has ever made. At least 2 of them are. And this exotic mission Rotator will become the home for many more vaulted content to return. Fingers crossed that the Whisper mission, Harbinger, 0 Hour, all of those will make a return someday. And no lie, guys, some of these are dungeon level fun, as well as challenging. If you've not done an exotic mission, you may be thinking, oh, that doesn't sound nearly as hard as a dungeon. Fellas, dude, some of these legendary exotic missions are wild. Secondly, though, Lightfall brought in a huge number of new players who will finally get the experience these exotic missions. And on top of that, they have means of acquisition of these exotics now. Now, you may be wondering, why would I go after these exotics if I already have them? This brings us to big change number 2. Bungie is adding craftable exotic weapons to the Rotator. I know we have things like Osteostriga, Revision 0, and Excalibur, which are craftable exotics. Now, these exotics are essentially going to be the exact same way, as they too will be craftable. Things like Dead Man's Tale and Dead Messenger can be shaped and reshaped for the first time ever, with future editions both being the same way. And they're also adding new traits to spice Dead Man's Tale up even more. Now, upon completion of an exotic mission for the first time, players will receive a deep sight drop of that mission's exotic weapon, which is really all that's required to unlock the pattern. Completing the mission again will then unlock an intrinsic upgrade that can be applied while shaping the weapon. Legendary completions will also award catalyst upgrades for the exotic weapon. So there's really a reason to do every level of these exotic missions. Now, Bungie promises that all exotic missions that enter the Rotator will feature this same reward behavior, which brings us to big change number 3. And I know you're probably wondering, Cross, why are these broken down into 3 different changes, considering they're all under the same umbrella of exotic missions? Well, quite frankly, guys, it's because this is a substantial change, and you're gonna love this one. Big change number 3, returning seasonal weapons. Guys, have you taken off a season before to come back and realize you missed out on getting a certain weapon? FOMO has been a thing inside of Destiny since really Destiny 1. Bungie is looking to correct that though with the exotic mission Rotator. This will become the main source for sunset seasonal legendary weapons and armor. What this means, guys, is that each one of these exotic missions will feature a theme from the season that the mission dropped. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to be a perfect 1-to-1. For instance, Presage, despite launching during Chosen, will feature gear from Season the Haunted. So things like Allstringer, Tears of Contrition, Callous Minito, those weapons will be dropping from the Presage mission. Vox Obscura will offer Season the Risen gear like Explosive Personality, Dauntless, and Peace of Mind. And Seraph Shield offers some Season 19 bangers like the Ikelos weapons, Path of Least Resistance, and the LMG GOAT Retrofit Escapade. Now, there is a full list right here, guys, that was featured to us on the August 10th TWAB. It's girthy, but upon the first completion each week, the featured mission will drop 1 deep sight weapon from its loot pool for a weapon whose pattern has not been unlocked. And additional completions will drop an additional piece of gear, but these drops have no knockout protection or even deep sight guarantees. There's also going to be a weekly challenge whose criteria are still unknown, but this will grant yet another deep sight drop. On top of being excellent missions with iconic exotics, the Rotator promises to transform these missions into great farms for chasing gear of all kinds, and it is serving as a catch-up mechanic. Obviously, it won't be perfect. This is a large loot pool, but But if you're like 1 or 2 patterns off from obtaining that craftable roll, right here, guys, this is the way to do it. Now, big change number 4, we are getting a reprised raid. Now, there's a bit less to say on this one. Raids are some of the best content in the game, but we have no rumors as of yet what the raid is going to be. Will it be Crota's Inn, Wrath of the Machine, Leviathan, or even Scourge? Lots of rumors around here, guys. We have people come by the stream all the time that say, hey, I know because my dad works at Bungie, it's Leviathan. Personally, I hope it's not. I believe the Destiny 1 raids coming back will be more impactful, even if it is Crota's Inn. Now, regardless, on September 1st, this raid is going to be dropping, which means we're going to have 7 raids in the game with a host of craftable weapons coming with it, as well as raid armor and a raid exotic to chase. Now, this also means that the Root of Nightmares will be entering the weekly raid rotation and will no longer be farmable all the time. Now, with that being said, I believe it's going to be Crota's Inn. I could be wrong, but I want to actually take a look at some of the loot from Crota's Inn. You remember these weapons? Now, someone brought up, what about Black Hammer? Well, Black Hammer could still return. I know we have Whisper in the game, but Black Hammer could just be a normal sniper rifle, minus Y now. Again, that may not exactly excite you, but perhaps this exotic will. This is Necrochasm, which we believe is going to be the raid exotic if it is in fact Crota's Inn. You see, you had to upgrade Necrochasm with literally something called the Crux of Crota, which was rewarded for completing Crota's Inn on hard mode. Now, the real question we should be asking, if it is in fact going to be Crota's Inn, is what kind of archetype is Necrochasm going to be? I know it was a 900 round per minute auto rifle back inside of Destiny 1. We don't exactly have that now, but Bungie has mentioned introducing new subfamilies, that being new archetypes, into Destiny 2. This could be our first 900 round per minute auto rifle, or Bungie could just make it an SMG. Either way, Necrochasm would be a fantastic weapon to have inside of Destiny 2. We'll be tackling the Day 1 raid over on our Twitch. Come join us, guys. Yes, there will be a world's first for this raid as well, as you have to beat the base version of the raid, and then you will have to beat it in its challenge mode. And keep in mind, Crota's Inn was known for being the easiest raid back in Destiny 1. Wouldn't it be hilarious if Bungie actually made it one of the most difficult raids, just to clap back at all the people memeing on Crota's Inn? We'll see. Now, big change number 5, new Crucible content. Joe Blackburn, Destiny 2's current game director, dropped a video last week addressing several community concerns, notably the PvP experience. He made a promising announcement about upcoming Crucible map packs, a dedicated strike team of developers focusing on fast-moving updates to PvP, which was enough to give us some hope for the future once again. Now, most of those changes won't hit until after the final shape, but Season 22 still has some goodies to tide us over. Multiplex is the first new Crucible map since Disjunction. So let's be frank, Disjunction may have been one of the worst maps Bungie has ever given us in terms of enjoyability. Multiplex, though, is said to be asymmetrical, Vex-themed, with Bungie commenting, quotes, "It will work well for multiple game modes." Now, one screenshot and some narrative description are all we can go off of, but we've also been promised some footage from the Final Shape showcase. Additionally, we're going to be getting new game modes, one being called Checkmates. This dials down ability usage and increases time to kill, putting us in that realm of like around 1.2 TTK values, which if you play D2 vanilla, is pretty much in line with that. So think less mayhem and more like Halo. Now the question is this a beta test for broader changes to the Crucible? You never know, guys. It really just depends on how much people like it. Some of you may actually like a lengthier time to kill. Now, Relic is another game mode Bungie is adding, which is more of a mayhem style game mode where you actually use relics like the Synaptic Spear, Sights, and the Aegis Shield from Vault of Glass. Again, this is the more chaotic game mode. Now, big change number 6, new progression paradigm. Community burnout and dissatisfaction hit fever pitch last year during Season of Plunder, primarily because players were just tired of the time-gated upgrades at seasonal vendors, which was the standard format for close to 10 seasons running. Now, during that time, Joe mentioned that the team was working on shaking things up, but that development was already locked in through Season 21. Lo and behold, the state of the game promises a shake up to the seasonal structure that will subvert player expectations and make each season feel unique, while also giving devs more freedom to stretch narratively and in gameplay throughout Seasons 22 and 23. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. It sounds good, but this is one of those things we're just gonna have to wait and see. Season of the Deep did feature a different upgrade structure where it didn't really time gate things, but to be honest with you, it was still very similar to our previous seasonal structures. But no lie, I'm really curious to see what these changes are going to be though. Now, big change number 7, economy changes. Guys, we've already talked about this a number of times, but essentially, Bungie is making a change coming to Ascended materials. Ascended shards, alloys, enhancement prisms, they are all getting their inventory caps doubled, and in some cases, tripled. You'll be able to hold 30 alloys 130 shards, and 100 prisms. Now, what is the trade-off for this higher limit? The trade-off is that excess materials are not going to be collected. That's right. Once Season 22 begins, if you are at that cap and there is a shard, alloy, or prism on the ground, you will not be able to pick them up and they will not go to the postmaster. Now, with that being said, if you already hoarded those materials and they are currently in your postmaster, they will remain, meaning you can go back and pull those materials out whenever you need. Now, another material that's also being deprecated is the resonant and harmonic alloys. These are crafting materials. And the main takeaway for this, guys, is that crafting materials have been getting consolidated pretty much every single season since Witch Queen. Now, you'll be able to take these leftover materials in your inventory and exchange them for Glimmer with Master Raoul. But essentially, guys, things are becoming simpler. Crafting basic weapons will require more basic currencies like Glimmer and Legendary Shards. Now, the crafting economy changes also includes changes to weapon level progression. This was actually announced this past week, where crafting and enhanced weapons will gain an additional mod slot, through which players may spend Glimmer and enhancement cores to increase that weapon's level, thus unlocking additional mods and perks. Now, Bungie mentions that this is an alternative source for leveling your weapons, but the cost for this upgrade increases with every level. The main takeaway for this is that overall leveling should be faster this coming season, as activity completions and guardian kills will net you more percent, with the big one being that excess progress will roll over from level to level, much like the season pass. So the TLDR on that one, guys, is that leveling weapons should be getting a lot easier, hopefully. Now, big change number 8, ritual weapon rates and focusing. Ritual playlists are getting a double whammy improvement. First, there's gonna be a big list of brand new weapons coming to the Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit, Iron Banner, and Trials of Osiris. These are the weapons that are gonna be dropping from each of these ritual playlists. Now, secondly, all of these items will be available for Ingram focusing at the start of the season. Now, historically, you would have to wait a season to then focus that weapon, at least for these ritual weapons. But Bungie's decided to let us farm right out the gate, allowing us to focus these Ingrams immediately. And it doesn't seem like the cost for this is going to be changing, but that also means you do need to top off your Glimmer and Legendary Shards beforehand. Now, Bungie's also going to be increasing the drop rate for ritual Ingrams upon match completions. Now, the third change, after much hay was made over the discontinuation of annual ritual armor sets in the state of the game, Joe let us know in his Twitter video that an armor set that was originally designed for the Eververse will be making its way to our ritual armor pool for free. Hopefully it's spicy. Now, big change number 9. Arguably the biggest change coming to Sandbox this season is the damage, fall off, and zoom decoupling change. Guys, this is on the same level as airborne effectiveness. For the longest time, all of your weapons in this game has had a stat that many of you may not have even noticed. It was the zoom stat, and it affected many things. Things like recoil, accuracy, aim assist fall off, damage fall off. These were the things that tied into your weapon, which could literally change your opinion of that gun. In Season 22, zoom's impact on damage fall off is being removed. Now, it's still gonna have those other 3 benefits: recoil, accuracy, aim assist fall off, but the damage fall off, which makes such a big difference, especially if you're trying to achieve a certain optimal time to kill value. That right there is a big one, arguably the biggest one out of those 4. Now, this also means perks like Rangefinder aren't gonna be the say-all end-all perk in that given column. And what we see across the board, guys, is that there is going to be a range compression. In some cases, many of our weapons are actually having their floor lifted up. In other cases, the ceiling of these weapons are being brought down, especially in comparison to those weapons that do roll with Rangefinder, as Rangefinder will no longer allow you to boost that range past that weapon's base damage fall off. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means the sandbox is going to change potentially very dramatically. So much so that we're actually doing pre and post testing, especially on our exotics, because those weapons are actually looking to benefit the most from these changes. You see, legendaries actually were outpacing exotics in a lot of ways because they could roll perks like Rangefinder, or they could just get superior stats. Now that you have this range compression, certain weapons that have intrinsically low range, for instance, Thorn, are about to get picked up. This is a very exciting change, but also one that does somewhat concern me. You see, this decoupling of zoom could literally change the way your weapon feels when firing it. Hopefully that's not going to be the case. AE sounded like a great update when it was initially pitched, and it wasn't until we got into the game that we realized all of our weapons felt noticeably worse. Now, finally, big change number 10. We are getting a massive tuning pass. We've had a number of blog posts, guys, outlining sweeping changes to exotic armor, exotic weapons, abilities, and weapon sandbox at large. We're not going to be going into each and every single one of them, but each class is having a handful of exotic armor either getting buffed or reworked. On Hunters, Knucklehead Radar is actually going to be absorbing the functionality of Foe Tracer, with Foe Tracer getting an entire rework perk to its exotic perk. Titans, ACD feedback fins is going to be reworked to hook into armor charge, storing and spinning charges when dealing or receiving melee damage. And for my warlocks, Wings of Sacred Dawn will now automatically reload equipped solo weapons for each floating kill while aiming down sights. There are also some other changes, including Astrosight Burst, Hellfire Heart, and much more. These are some amazing changes, guys, and we can't wait to try them. Now, exotic weapons are also getting a lot of reworks. Things like Cloud Strike is getting a nerf. Vex Mythoclast is having its rate of fire reduced from 390 to 360, which is a big nerf. Wicked Implement is getting a massive buff with Headstone. But arguably the biggest change to our exotics is going to be the one hitting Monte Carlo, where its exotic catalyst is finally, after nearly 10 years, is going to allow Monte Carlo to use its bayonet. You get to poke people, fellas. You get to poke them hard. Now, abilities are also getting some much needed balance changes, including Titan Barricades receiving a PvP health reduction, with Towering Barricade getting a huge nerf in its base cooldown, increasing it from 48 seconds to a whopping 70 seconds. On top of that, Strand and Suspend is getting a massive nerf. These are big changes, guys. We're going to be doing pre and post testing on all of it just to see where things lie. Some good, some bad, and the rest up for interpretation. So there you go, guys. Those are the 10 biggest changes coming this week in Destiny 2 for Season 22. We're going to be watching the live reveal for Final Shape. There were a lot of other changes we didn't mention in today's video, including things like Warden's Law returning as a new archetype of hand cannon. That's right, it's going to be a 2-burst round hand cannon. There's also going to be a number of changes to matchmaking, where Bungie's going to be stretching out the parameters. Lots of good stuff, guys. And again, once we get the official patch notes in front of us, we'll be covering this in more depth. And I know some of this is kind of boring, but it's all about the details, man. The details, especially when it comes to Sandbox. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.